Hello, I'm Mitra Sorrells in the PhocusWire Studio at Phocuswright Europe, and I am joined by Kat Jones. She is founder and CEO of Byway Travel. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about the bit more about the two aspects of Byway. So first of all, you offer flight-free holiday packages. You also are developing the technology to help others be able to enable this, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so let's start first of all with the flight-free holidays. Give me a sense of kind of the scope of your business right now as far as where you're offering these types of trips.
Yeah, so at the moment we offer trips across Western Europe. So we largely start them in the UK, and then we take people out to kind of Spain, Portugal, down to Sicily, Corsica, and over towards Germany. We just launched in the Netherlands, which is where we are today. So, yeah.
Okay. What are your thoughts on how this can scale a bit more? Does it require a lot more entrepreneurs like Kat Jones to develop this in different markets around the world? Or, I mean, how can this grow?
Yeah, so I think the key for slow, so we're focused on slow travel with this sense that journeys are often richer and richer in their experience than a straight A to B type trip where you're not stopping off on the way. But those journeys are really complicated to assemble. So you have lots of different timetables that you're trying to coordinate. You have to figure out the connections. You have the risk of misconnections. Right. And then you're layering in accommodation. Where does it make sense for me to stop? What's going to suit me? What will I do while I'm there? So there's quite a lot involved in the research. And for me, I've never owned a car, so that's always been how I've gone. But I've always looked fairly unusual until about a couple of years ago. Yeah. And it's only just now really that the appeal of this kind of travel, we've got a resurgence of sleeper trains, there's a romance to this sort of travel. But really the blocker is the technology. And, we've had huge innovations in travel technologies and the way that air packages are dynamically packaged across all the OTAs. That just doesn't exist for these multimodal type itineraries where you're looking to package up accommodation experiences with transport across trains and boats and buses. That just didn't exist before we started to build it a couple of years ago. So I think that's the key to the scale.
So in other words, developing that technology, then working with partners who are implementing that technology who can then take this beyond.
Yeah, that's right. So I think that there's a lot more consumer interest in this kind of product now. And there are lots of existing travel companies who kind of are getting a sense that their customers might be interested in something like this. But where it's quite a departure and it's a lot of work to kind of get their heads around, oh my God, how would we even do that without it being a really manual part of the business? Right. So that's really where we're hoping that the technology that we're building, we're just kicking off our first partnerships this year, where that is broadly allowing people to offer this product without having to do all of that work, building that tech or that expertise to do it themselves.
And when you're talking about partnerships, can you give me a sense of what types of companies are you partnering with then for this?
Yeah, so there's a range, anything from, we partner with the man in seat 61, who is the guy that you go to read all sorts of detail on what kind of trains you get and how it all works. And then at the bottom, if you don't want to do all of that yourself, then you can click out and do it with Byway. But then we have partnerships with travel companies as well. So we have our first agency partnership, which is Kuoni. So Kuoni are selling slow travel products of ours. We have a partnership with Intrepid, where we are helping people arrive at the start of an Intrepid trip flight free as an alternative to booking those flights.
Okay, interesting, very interesting. Let's talk a bit more just about broadly about issues around sustainability and the travel industry. Will it take a bold move, maybe an uncomfortable move by someone or some company to kind of, accelerate some of what's happening? I mean, I'm wondering your thoughts there.
I think it will. And I think it's really important that we are challenging ourselves to do more than incremental, surfacing of, here's a carbon stamp on the trip. That's really important. We're working on that at Byway so that we're having carbon stamps on all the trips. We're not carbon free either. We're less than if you flew. But that stuff is really important. But I think we also have to recognize that certainly the climate impact of flights, and specifically of short haul flights, where there are trains and there are night trains and there are ways that you can easily cover distance if you want to, and there are ways that you can make journeys overland more enjoyable by adding in those stops and experiences. I think we've got to confront the fact that unless we start to seriously limit where we run short haul flights as an industry, then we're going to struggle to meet sustainability objectives that we have.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem there are going to be moments when it becomes a question of, okay, this may be the more profitable option, but maybe we need to go in this direction for the right reasons, and some of those difficult decisions by some companies.
I think that there might be. I think that there are also companies where they're just starting to realize the amount of consumer interest there is, and the amount that actually it's not necessarily something that is less profitable.
Yeah.
So it's something that people are willing to pay for experience. And that, I think, is something that we need to start shifting at the moment. You know, for this really to happen at scale, ultimately there's got to be a commercial incentive for that to make sense, right? So I think this journey that we're just beginning now, where people can see that often sustainability does match with a richness of experience and a depth of experience that customers are looking for, and a sense of connection that they are looking for, that actually is a product that it's in a lot of people's best interest to start to offer something like that. And that makes commercial sense, and they can sell that at a great rate to customers who want it. And therefore, suddenly, that's the bit that it then will take off from. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And as you're talking, I'm realizing, you know, because this concept of are consumers willing to pay has often been framed in the sense of, are they willing to pay for offsets, or are they willing to pay for sustainable aviation fuel? But the concept of just paying for a really amazing experience that happens to be more climate friendly, let's say.
That's exactly
is
it. You know,
a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, and I think that's where we, you know, when we started Byway, we were betting that would be how people were thinking, you know, that actually this slow travel experience was what would be resonating. And that's what we've built our brand around. You know, we're a B Corp, and yes, we're sustainable, but that's sort of a nice warm fuzzy at the end often of a purchase from our customers, who are doing it broadly because it feels exciting and it feels romantic. And ultimately, I think for this to scale and for this to really come into the mainstream, it has to be because people want to do it and they're excited to do it, rather than because they feel they ought to do it and should do it.
Right. Yeah, that's very interesting. So I guess I would just ask before we finish up, how optimistic are you? Like, is net zero by 2050 achievable?
I'm hugely optimistic. I think it is, and I think that it does require some more radical thinking than we are often doing at the moment. And I think it also requires a different set of product. You know, I think we need to see more companies offering something that does look slightly slower, that does look like, you know, if there's a good train, let's not use a plane. There's infrastructural stuff involved in that, and hopefully our technology can help with that as well. But I think if we can sort of ride this wave of consumer sentiment and appetite coming out of COVID, I think that we will be able to do that. But I think we have to think at a product level as well as at a incremental around the existing product level. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I applaud your optimism, and I'm right there with you. I hope you're very much right. So, Kat Jones, thank you so much for talking to us. Thank you.